So viewers, the Middle East escalation has entered day 5 and India is closely monitoring each and every development. The Prime Minister has also held conversations with various world leaders and has called for swift resolution of the ongoing conflict. The Prime Minister has also urged all sides to take the route of dialogue and diplomacy and is calling for de-escalation in the Middle East and especially in the Gulf nations where several Indians currently reside. Let's understand why a wider Gulf conflict will hit close to home. The Gulf hosts one of the largest overseas Indian communities. Around 39 lakh Indians live in the UAE, with about 27 lakh million staying in Saudi Arabia. There are 10 lakh in Kuwait and nearly 8 lakh in Qatar and around 7 lakh in Oman as well. So this is apart from the persons of Indian origin who may also be living in the region in large numbers. So let's get you more details now coming in of the Indian government successfully getting back these stranded Indians as airlines recalibrated routes and governments issued airspace advisories across parts of the Middle East this week. The immediate fallout was also felt not just in the control rooms but also in the transit lounges and hotel lobbies where hundreds of Indian travelers waited for clarity. What followed next was emotional scenes as the airports were seen filled with families who were reuniting after days of uncertainty and a lot of anxiety. In fact, an Indian eatery in Dubai has also come forward to offer free meals to several thousand people from India who are stranded in the nation.
My name's Amaya Mehra. I'm coming from Dubai. I was studying there as a student, yes. So it was pretty tough for me initially, but then I had the comfort of knowing, talking to my family on calls, they tried to calm me down, and with the UAE government as well, they didn't create even a little bit of panic. So it was the Indian news, I feel, they created panic back at house. It was a really big task because I was supposed to come back on 15th March initially, but then because of the situation there, I had to come back early. My parents were really stressed.
So how has been your experience? Now finally the daughter is here. How do you feel now?
I'm feeling very happy now. I was super stressed. My wife and I didn't sleep for at least 2 to 3 nights. So, I don't know. God has been very kind to us. By luck, we got a ticket. One of our friends, he booked a charter flight and there were 180 people. So his family, about 30 people were there and my daughter was one of them.
नॉर्मल थे, बहुत ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम नहीं थी. पास में ही पाम जुमेरा में जो डेब्रिस हैं वो गिरे थे. इंटरसेप्ट हमारे होटल के ऊपर भी इंटरसेप्ट हुआ है. कई सारी मिसाइल इंटरसेप्ट हुए, बट नीचे कोई डैमेज नहीं था. होटल्स के ऊपर कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं थी. इजीली सबका खाना पीना सारा कुछ नॉर्मल था. बाहर जाने के लिए रेस्ट्रिक्ट किया था ताकि कोई डेब्रिस नीचे ना गिरे. बाकी सब नॉर्मल था, ऐसा कुछ प्रॉब्लम नहीं था. हमने इन्फॉर्म किया हुआ था गवर्नमेंट अथॉरिटीज़ को. बाकी हमारा ग्रुप था तो ग्रुप में हम साथ में थे.
It was a bad experience. It is a nightmare. I don't know how I came. I was just lucky that I got a ticket, and the window slot for the Emirates flight just opened for 30 minutes, and I got the ticket in that slot. And I went to the airport 4 hours early, and they gave me the boarding. Otherwise, they have denied boarding to many of them because Emirates were operating only the rescue flights, what they call rescue flights. They were just rescuing their passengers. But luckily, I got the chance and I came back. It is a nightmare. And what I have seen there is, we can't sleep the whole night. Shells and all and everything and bombing and all. It was really scary. Thanks God, I'm back to my country.
We actually had been to Dubai, and when our flight cancelled on 28th, we were in doldrum. Whether the airports will open, whether flights will fly, which flight will come. Indigo said, we are not flying, these, that. And we are booked 2-3 times, but the flights were cancelling again and again. Luckily, this Bangalore flight, Emirates has opened, and we were in total a big group, but 7 tickets we got, and we boarded on this Bangalore flight. And just now we get down, and I'm happy for the India government, Narendra Modi, and all the efforts taken by our External Affairs Minister and all of them. We are happy. We are Indians, and India is the best country, not to say anything.
आज कई दिनों के बाद 28 तारीख को हमारा वापसी था दुबई से पूना के लिए, लेकिन हम वहाँ पे अचानक स्टक हो गए. फ्लाइट पे गए, इंडिगो की फ़्लाइट थी लेकिन वो कैंसिल हो गई वार के कारण. हर तरीके से दुबई गवर्नमेंट ने हमें पूरा अच्छी तरह सहयोग दिया। किसी प्रकार का कोई भी वातावरण उधर खराब नहीं है, सब हलचल अच्छी है सिटी में। दुबई इज़ नॉट डिस्टर्ब्ड ओवरऑल। उसके बाद अब मोदी जी की कोशिश से आज अमीरात की फ़्लाइट चली है, कुछ शायद आज इसकी भी स्पाइस जेट की भी चली है। तो मोदी जी के प्रयासों से जो अमीरात ने जो गवर्नमेंट ने अमीरात की जो फ़्लाइट चली उससे आज हमारे को ये टिकट मिली। थैंक यू आवर पीएम मोदी जी, थैंक यू अमीरात UAE government for excellent efforts. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's introduce guests joining us this evening. We have Lieutenant General Asit Mistry as well as Dr. Doron Avital on the broadcast with us. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Avital, I want to begin with you on how you see things proceeding from here, because Israel is IDF has now claimed that it has hit multiple aerial capabilities of Tehran, apart from also bringing in ground invasion in South Beirut. But what is the end goal here? Because Israel has said any new leadership that comes in within Iran will also be a target for Israel. How do you see this proceeding, and what has been the goal of Israel? When will that be realized?
Okay, first of all, Israel has right now two fronts. Of course, the Iranian front, where we operate under the umbrella of the Americans. So the end game in Iran would be in sync with the way the Americans see it, and it's open. Basically, of course, everybody would have liked to see a regime change, but the question, what kind of a regime change? It doesn't have to be this vision of liberal democracy in Iran, which looks very far away to perceive, but maybe a more constructive, pragmatic leadership, even within the current leadership, but that is willing to play balls, as we say, with the geopolitical landscape of our times and the issues of the Gulf and the issues of the interests of U.S. and Israel in this context. I'm not sure it's happening, but right now, one thing is clear: that the rhetoric of the old regime, in terms of the technology and the power that they can exert, it seems to be really not valid against the superiority of the technology and the war machine, both of Israel and the U.S. And this is something for the Iranian people to be reckoned with. I mean, there's this huge gap, what Iran was projecting in terms of its powers and what it really can deliver. This is an important lesson for the Iranian people, and this might consider a new pragmatic leadership. Let's hope. The other front we have is, of course, the Lebanon front. This is our filter, and this is where we want to, in tandem with the Lebanese government, see that Hezbollah is really losing its power or losing its capabilities to hurt us.
Okay, all right. There were questions on whether there would be a power vacuum in Iran, and that's clearly not the case. There is a succession plan that is in place. Are there fears of more radicals taking control of Iran as well? We speak about that, but before that, some breaking updates coming in of at least 101 people who are currently missing, 78 wounded after a submarine attack on an Iranian ship off Sri Lanka's coast. So sources in Sri Lankan Navy and Defence Ministry have told the media the entire coast of Sri Lanka lies within the Indian Ocean region, with 30 people being rescued. There are 78 who are said to be wounded and at least 101 people who are said to be missing currently. So there is no information on what next. Iranian ship is said to have been hit, with 101 people currently reported missing. Lieutenant General Asit Mistry, so, this is now getting wider and wider. We're not just looking at a regional impact in the Gulf region, but we're also looking at a ship off the coast of Sri Lanka as well being hit. And look at the numbers: 101 people missing, 78 wounded. There are about 30-odd people who have been rescued.
Yes, this is bound to happen because the regime in Iran, which is, fighting an existential threat to itself, is now resorting to all kinds of diversionary tactics. It's making retaliatory strikes against all the Gulf Arab states besides Israel. And in the process, it has hit a lot of civilian targets. As a result, the existing fault lines within the Middle East, between Iran and the other Gulf Arab states, is now being accentuated. You already have the Shia-Sunni fault line, you have the Arab, non-Arab fault line. So these are now being, being split wide open. And thus there is likely to be an expansion of conflict. But I'm sure that beyond the Gulf, these isolated incidents will be brought under control because the whole world is concerned. The critical issue right now is the passage of the energy vessels, the oil and the gas shipping through the Strait of Hormuz.
Yes.
While Iran has said that they have closed it and that they're going to keep it open only for selective partners, namely China. But the ability of the coalition forces to ensure security and safe passage of ships, I'm sure can be organized. In fact, there is one of the published statements by the President of US that if required, they will organize convoy protection of shipping. So hopefully, so much of expansion of conflict beyond the region should not take place.
Okay, you mentioned the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran has said that it is shut. The immediate response that has come in from the United States, including Trump making this claim as well, is that US will provide protection for any vessel that is passing through Strait of Hormuz. But given the region, given the challenges in the region, it's not a possibility. So, Dr. Avital, how is that going to happen? Because while US claims that there will be a protection that will be provided, including the US Navy that could possibly go there, because of the terrain in the region, that's not going to be possible. So if Iran says vessels are going to be a legitimate target, there is a threat that will remain, and vessels, countries will also think twice before actually bringing in vessels to cross from there.
Yeah, the threats would be, of course, be existing, and this is something that those ships would have to weigh in. But sure, one, the Iranian Navy is at the depth of the ocean or the Gulf, the Persian Gulf, and the only problem is the offshore way of really threatening those ships. And I think the U.S. has this heavy capacity of the Navy and the Air Force, and I'm sure this is what they put under close sight. And together with this incentive in terms of course, the insurance that Trump is presenting to the game, this might enable open the Hormuz Strait. But still, there's a risk here, there's a weight here, and this can run the economy in a certain way, and this could have effects that, of course, reaches way out of this the concrete conflict, for sure.
Okay, but does it seem like there could be added pressure now on Israel, on the United States as well, if the Strait of Hormuz is shut with the response that is coming in from Iran?
Yeah, I think in the end, if you think what's the strategy of the enemy, from our perspective, what's the strategy of Iran? It's a very clear strategy to create a havoc all around its surroundings, to threaten the Hormuz Strait, and to create such a pressure from the neighboring alliances around the globe to end the war as soon as possible, and this way to retain their hold on power, or maybe, and this is our hope, of course, to have a more pragmatic leadership in the future. So this will be, of course, the question of the next few days, and how long would this war continue? Sure.
Okay, but Lieutenant General Mistry, is that how you see it proceeding as well? Because while we were having these discussions in the morning as well, one of our panelists also pointed out that this could turn out to be a Vietnam 2.0 for the United States. Do you see it proceeding that way? And do you think that the United States or Israel undermine the capabilities, the succession plan, and the response of Iran in such a scenario?
Well, nobody has a crystal ball to gauge, what's likely to happen tomorrow. But one can only make, analysis based on the available inputs.
Yes. So, okay.
It is difficult to do a crystal ball gazing when you have such a dynamic situation.
That's true.
But having said that, the Iranian regime is absolutely fighting for its survival. And to ensure its survival, it will resort to any kind of stratagems that it can, resort to. And in the process, if it can create fear psychosis about disruption in all oil supplies or energy supplies to the world, because even the gas, LNG also goes through there, it is going to create a lot of panic. And, they have so far not mined the straits, but they are capable of mining the straits. If they can scuttle a couple of ships in the straits, which are quite narrow, it is going to cause a serious disruption. While it will get cleared in due course of time, but there would be a disruption in supplies. So this is a live threat, and Iran is very much aware of the potential of blocking, or at least the threat to block Hormuz Strait, and it will have a cascading effect on the cost of oil and the world economy as such. So it's a very much a live threat, and you just can't totally ignore it. And if push comes to shove, the US and Israeli forces will have to take extraordinary measures to ensure that the Hormuz remains open.
Okay, so you're saying the biggest bargaining chip for Iran, or the biggest threat currently, is the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is in control of Iran, and Iran says that it is shut, which is why major economies in the world are also going to be affected, and that is going to add additional pressure for Israel as well as the United States as well, which is why Trump has also responded to it. But Dr. Avital, on the multiple claims that are being made by Trump as well, is that an indication that the United States was also not sure what it was getting into? Because you had the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, saying that it was Israel that was planning to attack Iran, after which US feared a retaliation and had to move in with Israel. You've also had multiple claims coming in from Trump as well on how long this war could draw out.
Sure. There were like three goals, basically. The first pretext was, of course, the nuclear plan of Iran, which we felt that was in some sense decapitated, but then it turns out that they're still continuing. And this was the first objective. The second, the ballistic missile, that they really spreading havoc around Israel and, of course, the Gulf states. But the third was, of course, this option of regime change, or, as I said, at the least, a more pragmatic leadership. And the U.S. has its own inside problems, because the question how Trump decided to go to this war, what's the context where that he didn't involve the Congress. This is major issues, and they were trying to play it around the preemptive strike, around the possible preemptive strike of the Iranians, and the Israelis will retaliate. I think they are playing their own political game inside. The fact of the matter, we are in war, and now the question is what will be the end game of this war?
Yes, and the question on everybody's mind, Dr. Avital, on when will the war end? And, you're speaking of regime change, and that has been hinted by the United States as well, but without actually having troops on the ground, is that a possibility at all?
I would say boots on the ground in the sense of Iraq or Afghanistan, in terms of a big offensive, I don't see it. The capacities are not there. I mean, to have boots on the ground, you really have to mobilize those forces in the context of the first Gulf War. But what we do have, of course, and I'm sure we do have, and even Trump hinted to this, is like special forces, CIA, whatever, operating in the north with the Kurds, fighting to organize those militia or whatever forces that are willing to take part on the ground against this regime.
Okay, all right. Thank you for joining us on the broadcast. Like you mentioned, the situation is still volatile. We're seeing developments every hour. Are there going to be talks or not? Trump initially claimed that it's too late for the talks. Then he said he's willing for talks, after which a response came in from Iran that we don't want to have talks with the United States. So we don't know yet how this is going to proceed. Thank you, our guests, for joining us this evening, and we keep track of the developments there. Quick break now. We'll be right back.